Okay, everybody, welcome back. Happy Thursday for those who are joining us live. Let's put all these pieces together a little bit. We jumped around a little bit this week. Yesterday we spoke a little about the idea of assimilating information, accommodating information, how it works, mental modeling, just to clarify. I hope I'm making things clear. Whenever you learn anything in life, you don't just take it in. No one does that. Even if sometimes you do, but even if you want to, you don't. Because it's hard for your brain to figure out where to put it. So even if you're not like rejecting it, you're accepting it. I believe what you're saying is true. How do you apply it? Your brain's got to be like, okay, it's true. You got to lose weight. That's true. Now what? Like, what do you want me to do with that? Like, I got like a whole neural map called eat it because it tastes good. So like, you're right. You spoke to the doctor. You got to lose weight. We're in. What do we do with that? Like, we got habits to form. We got stuff, a lot of brain work that has to happen now to get you to a place in which you don't reach for the donut, you don't eat after 8 o'clock, you go through the pain of running on a treadmill. Like, there's a lot of work to do. So what's happening is assimilation of information. I gotta lose weight, accommodation of the information, where do I put it, and then mental map evolution. Okay, well, the choice of eating versus how I feel. Let's go with how I feel. Okay, remember that. Do it again. Your brain, do it again, right? This is neuroplasticity. Again. After 50 times, you get to this fridge and go, I don't want that. I'm not gonna. It's gonna hurt me. Right? So what happens is, thank you for those who say God bless you. There's got to be like 10 people who are like, God bless you. Thank you. So when that's happening, the information is now coming in. This is why external inspiration is so fleeting, because your brain has to adapt to it. So the only really stuff that really inspires you, to be honest, stuff that you already adapted to, you already know. And now you just need like a yes, you can speech, which is why most people mistakenly think that's what motivation is. Because that's the only motivation that actually works, because the information's already there. And all they need is like a little bit of a music to get them going. But that's not really motivation. Motivation is being able to take information and adapt it to being somebody different. So your assimilation of it, your mental map evolution is really where the change happens. So how do you know you have it? So you can do it, but what if you can't do it or you're not doing it? You know how you know you have it? You speak it. That's why bringing it out is how you bring it in. That's why speaking and encouraging is how you get it. Because if you can think of the steps from what you need to go through to become bigger and better, it begins with something external. But you don't have the applied ability to external information. If you did, you've been doing it already. Your brain now has to assimilate the information inside you. And even then, most of it you can't get it out because you got your own emotions and your own baggage and your own exhaustion and your own stuff. So even though you heard it, that's level 1. I heard it. Number 2 is I am putting it in my head and trying to figure out how it applies to me. Even though I did those 2 things, there's a lot of stuff in between that and actually doing it called me. And I'm too tired, and I don't want to tell her, and this person hurt me, and I don't want them to fail, and all the stuff. So how do you go? If you can apply it, God bless you. You're done. But if you can't, how do you get it? You speak it out. And by speaking it out and by giving it to somebody else, you're actually solidifying it in your own mind. You're taking that information and you're putting it into some package called clarity of advice. And I bet you this happened to you. I bet you in your life, when you were encouraging or advising somebody else, you were finally making sense of your own thoughts. Because that's what you had to do. You had to articulate it for somebody else. You had to take the thing that you studied and learned, that you know to be true, and share it. And what that does is it solidifies the process of getting it in the first place. It's the next step of the evolution of I heard it in someone else's life. I brought it to my life. I'm fighting with it in my own head, and now I'm sharing it with you. And by sharing it with you, I am articulating it. I'm containing it. I'm figuring it out and getting it out. I'm combing out the knots. And that puts you in the best position to now finally hear the same words that you know to be true because you gave it to somebody else. That's not in the language of somebody else that you heard from, but in your language, in your processing of someone else's inspiration. You read it in a book, you hear it in a speech, you hear it in a story, you watch a video, you see it, it comes into your mind, you process it, you share it, and now it sounds like you. Now your brain goes, that makes sense. And all you got to do from there is when you're done with those moments, find out, pause, and say, how do I put that in my life? Because as soon as you do that, what you have to put in your life is custom fit information. It's gone through a whole system, and you packaged it with your own language. Your brain loves your language. Your brain has been hearing you speak since you were a kid. Your brain loves your voice. That's why people love to talk so much, because it loves its voice, because it feels familiar. That's why people love speaking to people that sound like them. It's not because they're biased or racist. It's because they like hearing their own voice, because they're used to hearing your own voice. Because when you have a neuroplastic brain, exposure feels like it's right. That's some of the greatest challenges that we have. We think that because it sounds right, it's right. Because exposure feels right to us. It may not be, but that's how our brain operates. That's why it's so hard to have a different opinion if you grew up in a world where everyone shares the same opinion. Because you're so used to hearing it. It's hard to discern between it being exposed, you heard it a lot, and it being correct. Same thing with your own voice. The way your voice operates is it's familiar. So when you say something, your brain goes, hey, that sounds like a really good idea. If someone else says, you're like, who they? Unless you've determined that that person's voice is a worthy authority. But you're in the best position once it comes out. All you got to do to connect the dots is create a habit that as soon as you're done giving to somebody else, is you pause and you take one thing to put in your life. That's it. One thing. You give someone a speech on living in the moment. You pause and go, okay, now I gotta take this into myself. Okay, every day for 5 minutes, blah blah blah. You know how habits work, right? If you want to have a whole thing on habits, go back to episode whatever. You must have done like 20 days on habits, so change habits, etc. But that's how it works. So that when you want to grow in yourself, by giving other people those words, by modeling the behavior for others, you're now in this unique position to put it into your own life. And all you got to do is not skip the last step, not jump past it. Slow it down, write it out, think it out. Okay, that's right. I gotta live it now. How? One thing, 5 more minutes a day, right? You know the deal. Habits, rituals. Not a resolution. We've been here before. And if you live this way, you will find that the stuff you got to work on in your life is everywhere. And as soon as you start to help people with their lives, as soon as you start to encourage, as soon as you become a positive person yourself, you'll start to bring the positivity into your own life. As soon as you give other people confidence, as soon as you start to tell other people how good they really are, you pause and go, okay, now you got to believe it in yourself. Every day, if I think I'm not, one time a day, I'm going to remind myself of this moment, sitting here with my friend on the park bench, I'm going to do it anyways. Whatever, you come up with a ritual. You know how that works. But this little piece here is the final piece of the puzzle. It's the piece that connects the outside hearing it, mind assimilation accommodation, revising how you see the world, then articulating it to get around your emotions, and then once it's out, you got to bring it right back in. Have that moment. It's going to take you 2 minutes. You hang up the phone, drive in the car, walk back to your desk. The moments where you say, all right, that was right. Nobody does this part. This is why they lose. It's like you get to the end and you don't cross the finish line. That's what it's like. You run the race, you're like a minute away from cross, and you just like give up. Right? You make the money, but you don't take the time to figure out the ATM code. That's what this is like. You have the money in the bank, but you're like, nah, I don't remember the code. Forget it. Well, it's a code. You did the work. You did the work. You studied, you learned, you opened yourself up, you thought, you grew, you shared. Now you're at the end. Put in the code. Stop. Pause. How do I put it into my life? For real. Stop telling me I can't. I just told someone else that I can. Why can't I? What's the one thing I'm going to change? 5 minutes a day. It's going to get hard in the second week. Push through it. Neuroplasticity, habits change. You go back out into the world and be a positive person that encourages others. You'll get something else. You'll encourage someone else in something else. You'll go back into your life and go, how do I put that in my life? You'll just keep on doing it, and you'll find you just keep on helping others with your mouth. Forget it. We're not up to anything else. We're just talking about your mouth. We're talking about your words. Keep on helping with your mouth. You're gonna find lessons that you've had inside you buried. You have more lessons than you can think of. Put it into your life. Make a small change. Week, month, year. You're a different human being. And it's all coming from you. It's all coming from God, but it's through the divineness of who you are. Okay, but there's one other piece to this. There's plenty of other pieces. It's your eyes. With God's help, next week we'll talk about that. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. With God's help, can't wait to see you next week.
Living on a lifeline. The world doesn't ever seem to change. Looking for the sunshine, but you're caught up in the rain. It's like your eyes are wide open, but you cannot see. You're watching life pass you by like 1, 2, 3. Walking in destruction. The winds of life blur your vision. All the devastation. Forever feels like you're on the run. It's time. No one else can set you free. You're locked inside.